Yeah.
Good
Good
afternoon,
afternoon, sir.
Dr. Mr.
Good
Dr. Mani.
afternoon, sir.
Sir.
I think Mr. Ji, you start the session.
Yeah, we can start, sir. It is already 4:05. So I think lots of people must be waiting for the question answers all over. They have taken the link and they are very much interested to know many things from Dr. Mani. You can just start the thing, sir. If you give the green signal, we will go ahead.
Yeah. Just a minute. डॉक्टर मणि का एक छोटा सा सीवी आप भेजे थे, हम लोग ढूंढ रहे हैं।
और सीवी सर मैंने भेज दिया था, वो कस्बा के पास भेजा था पूरा।
हम देख रहे हैं। Important day. We are going to start programs on behalf of our newly established heritage cell at the university, where Dr. Misra has taken the charge of this heritage cell. And we are very happy that at the first program amongst us, we have Dr. B.R. Mani. B.R. Mani is a Director General of National Museum, Delhi, and he was a Vice Chancellor. And he has a profound knowledge, particularly on Nalanda and different other heritage sites. So it's a great thing that we got his consent to be amongst us at these first programs of Heritage Cell for sharing his knowledge, wisdom, his ideas, his observation on the future of this heritage restoration, preservation, particularly as far as India is concerned. India is always a place for all these artifacts, monuments, and all these places of historic interest or the places of heritages. But we need to develop a large numbers of professionals for proper maintenance and proper utilizations of these heritage sites for attracting tourists from all over different parts of this world, because these are potential for earning lots of revenues. And there are many historical facts associated with this which are interesting. In that sense, it can open up new dimension and new directions, in particularly as far as researches in history is concerned. So there are lots of interesting and important academic activities, academic prospects, this economic prospects, then passion to know this out of curiosity. Also, we want to know about all our past and all these things. And these are many these dimensions are associated with this on the culture of this particularly this heritage sites, heritage preservation, heritage and all these things. Without wasting further time, so may I request Dr. Panikan Mishra to introduce in a better way to Dr. Mani, to our audience, to our participants. And this is the big advantage of our digital platform, because this without spending much effort and time, we can join here as much as many numbers as possible. We can see right now there are 45 participants have joined, and the numbers will increase as the program will proceed further. And we are very thankful to our organizer, particularly Dr. Misra, Dr. Miss Anuja Bose, and all other associated with our heritage programs for making today's programs. My best wishes to all the participants, because this will be, I believe, a wonderful experience to all of you. And kindly post your questions, queries, and discuss with our resource person, our experts, share, get their opinions and share your feedback. And we are trying to create one heritage, this community, digital community. There you can always post your ideas, your opinions, and in that way we want to propagate the knowledge further. So through this digital media, and this is the mission of India, government of India also, we will have more, this focus, more emphasis to utilize these digital tools and techniques in this pandemic scenario. And in the pandemic scenario, because this tool and technology is available with us, we are not sitting idle, and we are trying to take, the best benefit out of all these resources, all this technology. And requesting Dr. Misra to take this program ahead.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. First of all, I thank you, sir, for permitting us to call such an eminent scholar, Dr. V.R. Mani, for this heritage, and he readily accepted our proposal, and he is with us today. So most welcome to Dr. V.R. Mani, and with us Mr. Neeraj Kumar. He is a Doan, and he is a very renowned person who has joined us from Nalanda, sir, and he is the one who is working for Nalanda. So my vice chancellor is there, Neeraj ji, and he is just remembering you. So you are also welcome. So to brief everyone about Dr. B.R. Mani, I can say that in India we have very few archaeologists of the caliber of Dr. B.R. Mani. B.R. Mani's play in archaeology and as well as in Archaeological Survey of India was very long, and from deputy superintending archaeologist, he became superintending archaeologist. He had served in many circles of the country where there was World Heritage Sites, and then Dr. Mani became the director, and then he became the additional director general. After additional director general, he left ASI due to his superannuation, and then he joined National Museum, New Delhi, as a Director General and Vice Chancellor of National Museum Institute. And meanwhile, he must have excavated not less than 2 dozen sites all over the country, and he has brought many new findings in his excavations, which is commended by every scholars of the world, and they have recognized his work. He published many books on archaeology, and he has visited most of the countries of world as a guest on behalf of Archaeological Survey of India. He was invited as a scholar, and moreover, what I feel, during his time, Dr. Mani used to be a very key figure in settling down many of the archaeological problems. And I don't mind saying here that when Ayodhya problem has crept up, that time the minister wanted that Dr. Mani should go to Ayodhya and he should also work there. And he was the one who excavated the Ayodhya excavation also. So he has many credits. I cannot make it in such a short time. Many laurels, many works which he has been doing, and after his superannuation also, now also he is attached with the Indian Archaeological Society as the vice chairman, and he is one of the member of that committee which government has constituted to rewrite the history. So our Honorable Minister, Government of India, has appointed him as its member also. And I have seen him from day and night, always he is busy with the archaeology. I am fortunate to be with him. We had a very brotherly relations. His father was also my father's class fellow, and his grandfather and my grandfather were also very much known to each other. So I am happy. And whenever I have requested Dr. Mani to come on any academic field with me, he is always ready to join me. I am sure that his lecture on Nalanda, because he has been working about Nalanda for Nalanda's World Heritage recognition as from the headquarter office, he have been trying, and he did lot for Nalanda to develop its archaeological value and archaeological things. He wrote many articles on Nalanda. He had given many lectures on Nalanda, not only in India, but outside India also. So I am sure today his lecture will be very interesting, very academic oriented, and he will bring a new light to Nalanda. So I welcome him again from on behalf of MAKAUT. MAKAUT, as you all know, that it is one of the institution very well known in Bengal and out of Bengal also. It is so popular, and that too, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sharkat Maitra Sahab, has done lots of works for this institution, and one of the result is that heritage cell is functioning there in MAKAUT, where we are doing so many works related to heritage, and this is one of our part of that work only, that today we are going to listen Dr. B.R. Mani's lecture. Thank you, Dr. B.R. Mani.
Good afternoon, Professor Saikat Mitra, Honorable Vice Chancellor of MAKAUT, dear Dr. P.K. Mishra, and the team of the organizers, ladies and gentlemen. I am thankful to all of you for asking me to deliver this lecture on Nalanda today. Let me just bring the PowerPoint. Can you see it?
No, sir, not started yet.
Can you see it?
No, it's not coming.
Okay, just a minute. Is it coming now?
No, no.
No, sir.
Kumar, you advise how to do it.
Sir, kindly see the below there is icon, green icon, share screen.
Yeah.
And on that, sir, you please select the presentation that will be available in the application.
Just give me 1 minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now it is coming,
I
sir. So
think
please
it
open
will
the
come
PPT, sir.
now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it has come.
Let me hide it. Is it coming now?
Sir, PPT is not visible, sir.
Oh, what happened?
Yes, sir. So please open the PPT. Yes, sir, it is visible now. Please, sir, continue. Sir.
Okay. So the topic of my lecture today is Nalanda, a World Heritage Site. Nalanda became a World Heritage Site in 2016, and for that the entire ASI, including the headquarters office, as well as the officers at Patna Circle and Patna Excavation Branch, in which Dr. Mishra was also there. We all did our best to see that the site is included in the World Heritage List. And there were so many hardships, but finally we became successful. World Heritage List includes 1,121 properties today, forming part of the cultural and natural heritage, which the World Heritage Committee considers as having outstanding universal value. These include 869 cultural, 213 natural, and 39 mixed properties in 167 states parties. India has 38 World Heritage properties, 30 cultural, 7 natural, and 1 mixed. 22 of the 30 cultural sites are under control and management of the Archaeological Survey of India, which is also the nodal agency of World Heritage in India. There are 42 properties in the Indian tentative list of the World Heritage today. India is proud to have NALANDA inscribed in 2016 in the World Heritage List of UNESCO. It is considered now to be the earliest university of the world which had an organized administrative and academic setup. There were different centers of learning in India and outside India. Representative ancient Indian centers for learning were Taxila, Nalanda, and Vikramshila. Other scattered centers were Gurukulas, Mathas, and Viharas in Kashmir, Bengal, Odisha, Kashi, Kanchi, Vallabhi, etc. Nalanda attracted students from far off places and foreign countries. It imparted rigorous training in art, culture, sciences, theological studies, literature, and grammar. Let me talk something about the shifting of attraction towards learning mainly due to political changes. Taxila was a center pre-Mauryan to Gupta period, that is circa 5th century BCE to circa 5th century CE. And we know that Taxila was attacked by the Huns in the 5th century, and the attraction was shifted to Nalanda. Nalanda was already having a Mahavihar, but the university as such in the Mahavihar was founded during the Gupta period. So from Gupta to Pal period, that is circa 5th century CE to circa 12th century CE, it became the center of learning. Vikramshila was another center which came up during the Pal period, circa 8th century to 12th century CE. We have other centers also like Paharpur, which is presently in Bangladesh, and many others. This is the plan of ruins near village Badgaon, about 11 kilometers north of Rajgir, which were identified by Alexander Cunningham with Nalanda. So when Cunningham came, he had seen several mounds, and some of the mounds had some buildings in the form of stupas and temples, etc. And there were reservoirs also all around. So he was the first to identify the ruins with the ancient center of learning, Nalanda. And then later on, it was excavated properly. Although some excavations were undertaken by Cunningham himself. Cunningham traced the antiquity of the site to the period between Fascian and Xuanzang, that is between 425 to 625 CE. Fascian visited Nalanda and called it Nalo, the birthplace of Sariputra, the chief disciple of Lord Buddha. Nalo can be equated with Nala or Nalak Gam or Nalika, mentioned in Angutar Nikaya, Madhyam Nikaya, Samyukta Nikaya, and Dhammapadat Katha, which also mention birth and death of Sariputra in the same room of the house. Buddhist texts mention Lord Buddha's preaching various suttas in the Pavarikambhavan at Nalanda. Modern village Sarichak can be identified with the place of birth of Sariputra in the village of his mother Sari. This village Sarichak is located towards east of the present day protected area near the present day museum. Mahavir, the 24th Jain Tirthankar, also believed to have spent 3 rainy seasons at Nalanda. Huinsang or Xuanzang mentions 1,500 teachers to guide 10,000 students at Nalanda. We also have the record of Taranath, a medieval scholar from Tibet, who writes on the early antiquity of Nalanda, where he says several points I quote, like Nalanda was the place of birth and nirvana of Sariputra. There was a Chaitya of Sariputra there. Ashok built a large temple of Buddha. 2 Acharya Brahman brothers built 8 temples there. Ashoka founded the first vihar. Udbhat, his brother, along with 500 acharyas, enlarged the center. Rahul Bhadra and Nagarjun spread the doctrine of Mahayana from Nalanda. During their time, a Brahman from Magad built 108 temples there. Nagarjun practiced alchemy and was Upadhyaya of Nalendra. Nagarjuna's disciples Aryadev and Nagahva stayed at Nalendra. Acharyas Asang and his brother Vasubandhu were Upadhyayas one after the other at Nalanda. Acharya Dingnag of Nalanda defeated Brahmanas thrice in debate. And this sculpture which you see on the screen is from Nalanda in stone, and it is identified to be a sculpture of Nagarjun, where you can see the snake hood, which symbolizes Nagarjun. Thus, traditionally, the antiquity of Nalanda is traced back to the time of Buddha down to Ashoka's reign, and developments in the time of Acharya Nagarjun during the Kushan period. On the other hand, historians and archaeologists, following Alexander Cunningham's view, believe that Buddhist settlement at Nalanda began during Gupta period and continued through Pal period to the 12th century CE. Although it is true that archaeological evidence of early antiquity of Nalanda is still insufficient, there are certain indications from earlier excavations which suggest the early beginning. One such evidence is from Stoop site number 3, and this is a partial view of the Stoop site number 3, where you can see that the little corner tower of fourth stupa inside large corner tower of fifth stupa from the north. Regular archaeological excavations were carried out at Nalanda by the Archaeological Survey of India from 1915-16 to 1935-36. That means for nearly 20 years, the excavations took place there under Sir John Marshall and D.B. Spooner. And excavations were mainly carried out by Hiranand Shastri and J.A. Page. A large area was excavated having stupas, monasteries, shrines, temples, and other structures, yielding a number of sculptures and antiquities. Excavations at that time lagged in study of stratigraphy, classification of ceramics and minor antiquities, and scientific dating. So you can see this view how so many people are collected, the archaeologists as well as the laborers all together in one trench. So there is a need for some fresh work to remove this delusion. Nalanda, as I was mentioning, it has produced beautiful sculptures in stone and metal. There are a number of seals and ceilings which have been found from the site during the excavations. Although, as I was mentioning, that the excavations were not scientifically oriented, but still lots of material was found, which are mostly displayed in a number of museums, particularly in Nalanda Museum, Nalanda Archaeological Museum, and the structures up to one level, they were also exposed. Interestingly, there are not just Buddhist sculptures, there are also Brahminical sculptures, as you can see, the right corner where the figure of Varaha avatar of Vishnu can be seen. There are a number of Buddhist sculptures in stone, metal, that is particularly bronze, copper bronze, and in stucco, which are found there, and which where the sculptures which gave birth to those sculptures which were found or which were created in Nepal or Tibet during the Mahayana and Vajrayana phases. This is a view of the Stoop site number 3. The first one is from 1861, when Alexander Cunningham reached there and he started some work. The lower one, you can see it is a photograph taken in 1871, where some more structures were exposed and some shades were provided for preservation, particularly preservation of the stucco figures. On the top right, you can see the photograph taken in 1925, which almost continues today. Around 2000, the lower one was taken. Only thing that all around the area has been developed through horticultural operations and other developmental processes. Now, coming back to stoop site number 3, because today I'll be more concentrating on this particular site. Stoop site number 3 was initially called a vihar in 1916-17 when the excavations had just started. Sometimes it is called Temple 3 due to location of a Buddha shrine at the top of the structure. Sometimes it is identified with the Sariputra Chaitya mentioned in the literature. It may well be the stupa built by Ashok as mentioned by Lama Tarana. And for that particular reason, we have some evidence to suggest in favor of that, which I'll be telling a little later. Some more photographs of the stoop site number 3, how it was in the shape of a mound, and sometimes at some places, some structures like corner towers and other structures, they were protruding out of the mound. In the lower one, you can see one of the trenches which were undertaken during the excavations, and one corner tower was exposed. When the excavations proceeded from 1915-16 onwards, which continued for next 20 years, the site was exposed and its drawings in after about 100 years later, today, we have only those evidences which were recorded at that time, which prove that the site was not just a structure of Pala period or even Gupta period, but its antiquity goes back to very early times. There are 7 different structural phases of this particular stoop site number 3. Some more images taken from ASI annual reports of those years when the excavations were in progress. And now let us examine the 7 stages of stoop site number 3. There are 3 later stages. When I say later stages, that means from 6th century to 12th century CE. And you can see the drawings, once again, those drawings prepared by Spooner and others while excavating the site, the plan and elevation. So the last structure is structure 7th. Lower part of the outer encompassing wall and a high brick wall built over the northern stair of the sixth stupa and ornamented with a series of molded string courses. Monolithic columns associated with this shrine suggest a colonnade attached with it in the area of 130 into 80 feet. These measurements I have taken only from the excavation reports of those periods. So, within the structure of seventh stage, we have the stage sixth, where staircases and landings were added in the structure. Huge brick mass of a large stupa was thus noticed. And earlier than that is the stage fifth, where stucco covered stupa base with corner towers and votive stupas were constructed. The facade is ornamented with stucco figures of Buddha and Bodhisattvas. A clay tablet from the level of this stage is inscribed with date 51670 CE, and that gives the date of stage fifth as early 6th century AD. Then we come to the first four stages out of the 7 stages, the earlier stages, and the range time bracket is circa 3rd century BCE to circa 5th century CE. Stage 4, as I had shown a photograph earlier, a low hollow chamber 12 feet 6 inches square with rough overhanging corbelling around the sides, floor being 1 foot above structure of stage 3. Then stage 3, a little above the structure of stage 2, slightly to the southeast, low remains of a chamber measuring 11 feet 6 inches east-west and 5 feet 6 inches in north-south orientation, filled with earth and debris. It was attached with a low platform with a rounded concrete top, torsos of 2 mutilated plaster images, and fragment of a black glazed pot. I have underlined this black glazed pot, about which I'll be just speaking. In the earth filling was found that suggests that it belongs to the earlier stage, that is from stage 2, or maybe even from stage 1. Now, coming to stage 2, you can imagine that once the excavation of this structure was continuing, it was continuing without harming much to the existing structures, and wherever there was some space to go further down, they excavated. So in the stage 2, it's a 2 feet high outer wall with plastered surface encasing the lower earlier structure, representing base of the second stupa built over and around the first one. And then coming to the earliest stage, that is stage 1, it's a base of a little square stupa, 5 feet 8 inches a side and 4 feet 6 inches of existing height. Inner face of its wall enclosed a chamber, and the smooth outer face corbelled out with two offsets in the form of footings which were plastered. And interestingly, the bricks used there in the first stage, they measure 45 centimeters into 32.5 centimeters into 9 centimeters. Big bricks. And now that was another clue which gives a particular time to the stage 1. And for that, there are some reasonings which I'll explain. Earth filling in the stage 3 yielded a black glazed pot, which I mentioned earlier. And when we say black glazed pot, there was no glazing technique at that time. So most probably it was a sherd of either northern black polished ware of either stage 1 or 2 or a black slip ware. That is how it is mentioned as black glazed pot. Then coming to the brick size of 18 inches into 13 inches into 4.5 inches, which I just mentioned, 45 centimeters long bricks of the structure of the stage 1 suggests them to be Mauryan bricks. And why Mauryan bricks? The normal sizes of Mauryan bricks are given here from Patliputra, Bhita, Kushinagar, Sarnath, Shravasti, Vaishali, Rajghat, and Kaushambi. And at all these places, the length, width, and height or thickness of the bricks are the same, which we find in the stage 1 structure at Nalanda. And they are typical Mauryan bricks. Relative succession of structural phases, at least 4 of them, dating before 6th century CE, is suggestive of much earlier dating of the stage 1 of the edifice. So, the 7 stages with 4 stages continuing after 6th century and 3 stages which are earlier than that, that makes the entire story of much earlier origin of the structures at Nalanda. Now, let us speak something about Nalanda Rajgir area. As you know, Rajgir is about 11 kilometers from Nalanda, and Rajgir had been the capital of Magad. And you know very well that from the capital cities or from the cities, the monastic establishments were a little away, but not much away, so that the monks can come and beg for alms. And the Nalanda, in the Rajgir area, the Cyclopean wall is very interesting, which runs to around 30 kilometers in length, having huge boulders which were placed there. And that is why there are scholars who believe that it was like Messenian wall, and it was constructed much earlier than 6th century BCE. There are at Rajgir the evidence of chariot wheel marks, which because of continuous running of chariots, it has given the mark on the stone and earth, and on many of the stones there are shell script inscriptions, like one I have given here. Then I should also mention about two important evidences which have come in 2006-7 and 2007-8. And these evidences of early cultures from Nalanda Rajgir area, they have come from habitational deposits from two of the recent excavations in the Nalanda Rajgir area by the excavation branch Patna of the ASI, have indicated the beginning of culture in the area in the middle of the second millennium BCE. And these sites are Jaffardi, which is very near, about 2 kilometers west of the World Heritage Site of Nalanda. And the other site is Ghoda Katora near Giryak in Rajgir itself. The excavation at Ghoda Katora was conducted by P.K. Mishra, who was superintending archaeologist of ASI Patna Circle and Excavation Branch 1. And according to him, the tentative chronology of the site is given here. There are 5 periods. Period 1 is Chalcolithic culture, going back to about 1500 BC to 800 BC. And then period 2 is Northern Black Polished Ware period, circa 800 BCE to 200 BCE. Period 3rd is Shung Kushan period, circa 200 BC to 300 AD or CE. And then 4th period is Gupta and post-Gupta period, 300 CE to 800 CE. And the last period is Pal period, which is 800 CE to 1200 CE. You can see some of this, one of the sections at Ghoda Katora here, and one of the sections where the ring wells can be seen, and some of the Chalcolithic pottery, or say pre-Northern Black Polished Ware pottery. There are more photographs of Chalcolithic Ghoda Katora and Northern Black Polished red ware, black and red ware shards at the site. Then the historical Ghoda Katora is also very important. It has yielded a number of terracottas, sculptures, seals and sealings, coins, etc. Let me come back to Nalanda from Rajgir area. In this Google map, you can see the area of Nalanda and the location of two sites, Jaffardi and Rukmini Sthan, on the north, which have been excavated by Jaffardi in 2006 and Rukmini Sthan in 2014-15 by the excavation branch of Archaeological Survey of India. Jaffardi has proved to be a very important site. It is a potential stup mound You can see the stoop mound of Jaffer D here with a water body and fields and groves all around with villages. And similarly, the Rukmini Sthan is a protected site of ASI, seems to be a monastery with a colossal seated Buddha of Pal period at the site. Now, during explorations in February 2006 around Nalanda Monastery complex, I, in the company of colleagues from excavation branch Patna, discovered northern black polished ware shirts, black sleeved ware, red ware, and black and red ware from two mounds, Jaffardi and Gad. These two, the pictures of these two mounds are given here, which are located towards west within 2 kilometers distance from the protected site of Nalanda. The former site was supposed to be a stoop mound and the latter a monastery, and this paper was published in the journal Puratattva number 36 in 2006 with the title Fresh Investigations in Early Chronology of Nalanda. And then other papers also followed. Jaffardi at Nalanda was put to excavation during 2006-7 by the excavation branch Patna of the ASI, and the mound, as identified by me as a stupa after excavations, has come out to be a mud stupa of Mauryan period, that is circa 3rd century BCE, which was constructed in the last phase of the habitation of the site, marked with the presence of northern black polished ware and other related ceramics. The mound has a diameter of about 50 meters and a height of nearly 10 meters to 12 meters from the surrounding ground level. Stone figure of a seated Buddha and other fragments are located on the northeastern side. A water body is located towards southeast of the mound. This is a general view of the excavations at the Jaffardi mound in 2006-7 on the stupa itself. Now, one very important aspect is that this stupa was constructed in the last phase, almost last phase of northern black polished ware period. And that we can say that probably it was Mauryan period and maybe by Ashok. But before that, the site was already in existence, as proved by 4 radiocarbon dates, which have been determined to be 1259 BC, 1002 BC, and 857 BC, which are the dates of the northern black polished ware period. And then before that, there is a date of 1562 BC, which is pre-NBPW period, which tallies with the evidence of Ghoda Katota. One interesting aspect was noticed by me at the site. You can see this wall on the right side. It runs in a circular manner and it was on, and then if you can see, there is a dipping of the mud stupa here. So it was taken by me from my mobile phone at that time. So the photograph is not very clear, but this is the only photograph available of this section. It shows that the mud stupa was provided with a brickwork all around it during the Kushan period. There are some other views of the levels below the NBPW levels. In a later survey by me in 2007, Kushan bricks have also been noticed towards north of the Nalanda complex within 1 kilometer distance at the area called Prangan, which perhaps suggests the entrance courtyard of the complex, where a damaged stone sculpture of standing Buddha of late Gupta period was also noticed. In fact, this area was explored by me in company of Dr. Mishra, Dr. P.K. Mishra, and other colleagues. And we thought that this is the area which, in due course of time, should be properly excavated. The main complex at Nalanda itself requires further excavations in the existing space, which may provide evidence to support the literary as well as recently explored and excavated data, suggesting the beginning of activities at the site much earlier than known today. Now, coming to the nomination of Nalanda as a World Heritage Site. And I would like to mention some of the attributes of its outstanding universal value. There are two cultural criteria. In fact, there are 10 criteria through which the World Heritage sites are nominated. There are 6 of them which are cultural criteria, and 4 of them are natural criteria. So, when making a nomination, at least 2 criteria should be used. So, in Nalanda, we had used criteria 4 and criteria 6. Criteria 4 fulfills the requirement, as Nalanda is an outstanding example of a type of a building, architectural or technological ensemble or landscape which illustrates a significant stage in human history. And criteria 6, Nalanda is directly or tangibly associated with events or living traditions, with ideas or with beliefs, with artistic and literary works of outstanding universal significance. So we discussed a lot about the 6 criteria and finally decided to have these 2 criteria to be utilized. The property was declared as archaeological site of Nalanda Mahavihar, within brackets Nalanda University, at Nalanda, Bihar, in the meeting of World Heritage Committee of UNESCO on 15th July 2016 at Istanbul. And it was accepted by the committee with full support of 23 countries who were participating. But before that, there were certain observations made by some quarters, which I think I must mention here. Before that, I must tell you that the nomination dossier of Nalanda for evaluation was submitted in January 2015 to the World Heritage Committee. And as on the right side, you can see the names of Dr. B.R. Mani, Dr. R.S. Fonia, Shri Janvi Sharma, and others. They are the persons who had information and documentation preparation, and the site management, Dr. P.K. Mishra, Dr. Sanjay Manjul, and others. Their names are there. So the huge nomination dossier was submitted in January 2015. And this is a procedure that after submission of the nomination dossier next year, a visit within 18 months, a visit takes place of ICOMOS, and visit of one member ICOMOS mission headed by Professor Masaya Masui from Japan at Nalanda for evaluation in August 2015, who was given all the explanations in favor of nomination. But finally, after his return, he seemed to be satisfied at the site. But after his return from India, he gave a report to defer the proposal. And this was a very alarming situation for all of us who had worked for day and night for preparation of the nomination dossier. Then further discussions with the ICOMOS team through video conferencing were carried out, and then followed by a written statement of the State Party India was put on record, and still the ICOMOS was not convinced and suggested World Heritage Convention to defer this proposal. But luckily, we fought till the end and ultimately succeeded. Some of the points raised by ICOMOS were: antiquity of Nalanda is not confirmed, neither by tradition nor by archaeological evidence. The second point was that criteria 6 is not fully demonstrated. Point number 3, Nalanda cannot be called a university as its attributes are not clear. Also, documentation part is also not put up, not up to mark. So these were observations, and we replied to all the 3, giving all information, all the details for the justification of this particular nomination. And these points which were raised by ICOMOS clearly show the attitude of ICOMOS, as our nomination dossier had tried to prove that Nalanda was the first organized university of the world, much earlier in antiquity than some of the early medieval universities of Europe. And probably the ICOMOS and World Heritage Center, which is dominated by Western groups, it was not palatable to them that Nalanda should be called the first organized university of the world. And that is why they were making certain wrong observations. So ultimately, in the 40th session of General Meeting of the World Heritage Convention of UNESCO, held on 15th July 2016 at Istanbul, every country supported the case and the site got inscribed with thumping majority. And I must thank all those members from the 23 nations, particularly from Southeast and South Asia and East Asia, who had, there were certain from Europe also, who participated and gave their preference to Nalanda to be inscribed. Now let me mention about certain attributes which we informed after the dossier was completed, and which we informed to the World Heritage Committee to consider. Some of the viharas, such as monastery number 4, have the evidence of classroom teaching, which is essential in a university. They said that it can be called a university. We gave the evidence of how the seat of teachers were there and how the students they used to sit in those classrooms in open courtyard as well as in rooms. As such, there can be notice the seat of the teacher at the eastern end of the monastery. This is in case of monastery number 4. This was covered with stone pillars in front which supported the roof. Later constructions covered original structures. We have large granary which supported the hostels and the residents of the university. So at site number 1, we have a huge granary which was exposed in earlier excavations. This is another view of excavations where systematic evidence were collected. There are evidences from all over the site which form the archaeological evidence of different types of entrances, different types of hearths and furnaces and all. Then many things are corroborated by the literary references, the evidences which came after the excavations, evidence of fires like that. Evidence of fire on several occasions is visible at the ruins of Nalanda. A stone inscription recovered from excavations also speak of fire and restoration in the time of Pal ruler Mahipal I, who ruled from 988 to 1038 CE. Minhajus Siraj, who wrote Tabkat-e-Nasri, also describes destruction of the Mahavihar by fire towards end of the 12th century. There are different views, but we can take the views which are officially recorded by the contemporary writers. So Minhajus Siraj is one of them, who describes the destruction through fire. Some interesting recent exposures have also been noticed. towards south of Stoop site number 3. And here you can see the earliest Panchayatan temple with chariot wheels. There is a central shrine, and there were 4 shrines on the 4 corners of the square of the platform. 2 of the shrines are in existence, 2 have been lost. Similarly, 3 of the chariots, they were found intact when this area was exposed. And you can see one of the chariots, the close-up view of the chariot here. So there were innovations. New type of architecture was developed at Nalanda, which was copied in later times by different monasteries or temples, etc. And the continuation of apsidal shrines in the 6th, 7th century. On the right side lower corner, you can see that apsidal shrine was also there. Nalanda has the earliest evidence of Vallabhi type of temple belonging to about 7th century CE. And such Vallabhi type of shikhar of the temples are normally there in South Indian temples, which we find for the first time in the 7th century CE at Nalanda. This form became more common in Dravid style at a later date, having vaulted shikhar. Yi Tsing has mentioned to have seen 8 big courtyards in the monastery, which seems to refer to the viharas constructed during Gupta period. So, excavations at Nalanda have provided evidence of a series of large and multi-storied viharas. You can see at least 3-storied viharas are still intact at Nalanda. The metal icons of Nalanda foundry had once high demand in India and abroad, in Nepal, China, Tibet, and Southeast Asia, where it influenced the art styles. The site of temple number 13 features a brick-made smelting furnace with 4 chambers. The discovery of burnt metal and slag suggests that it was used to cast metallic objects. Some of the fireplaces in monasteries may also suggest such usage. So the metal images which we find in large number at Nalanda, they had not come from outside. They were made at the monastic establishment itself, and metallurgy was one of the subjects which was taught to the students at this university. So that is why we have these furnaces where the chambers are full with burnt metal and slags. Some of the monasteries have skylights, particularly at staircases, a feature which was adopted in later period Buddhist monasteries in Ladakh, Bhutan, Mongolia, and Tibet, where Buddhism spread with inspirations from Nalanda. Such architectural elements still continue in practice. Traces of arched doors have been found in some of the lower cells of monastery number 10 at Nalanda. Entrances having true arches are unique features of architecture at Nalanda Mahavihar. Xuanzang and other authorities have mentioned about a place in Nalanda where intra-religious debates took place among scholars of various Brahminical and Buddhist sects. Such place could be identified towards east of the Mahavihar complex at present day temple number 2, which is shown in the side plan, which has beautiful panels showing various Brahminical and Buddhist deities. This could have also been the place of Dwar Panditas who interviewed entrants. So all these system of admitting students, their tests, their classrooms, everything was present in this Mahavihar. So why should we not call it a university? Nalanda's curriculum taught formalized Vedic learning, including Vedic texts. In no Vihar, Buddhist Vihar, Vedic learning is taught, but it was a university. Mahavihar developed into a university. That is why Vedic texts were also taught, rituals, Sankhya, and the Vedangas such as linguistics, reasoning, medicine, law, astronomy, and city planning. Sculptures of Vishnu, Shiva Parvati, Ganesh, Mahishasur and Surya have been unearthed in the ruins, and some of them you can see in this particular slide. There are some certain other very important features. Nalanda excavations have provided evidence of wooden slippers, hadang, metallic arrow holders, metallic lock and key, and representation of Vajra or thunderbolt, which are still used in Mahayan worship in Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, Mongolia, and elsewhere. So these have been found from the excavations. Xuanzang has described, let me just mention, that a number of elephant goats have been found in the excavations. So what was the purpose of having elephant goats in the monastery? And then I found some references. Xuanzang has described his stay in Nalanda and has mentioned that an elephant was provided to him for movement in the area. You know, the area was swampy with lots of water bodies and all. So elephants were provided and in the service of the monastery. The evidence of elephant goats found in the excavations and preserved in the site museum at Nalanda has confirmed this. Then we come to the Nalanda copper plate inscription of Devpal, how it influenced the Nalanda was influencing the contemporary world. So this particular copper plate, which is inscribed on both the sides with the seal of Devpal of Pal dynasty, the ruler Devpal of Pal dynasty. It was found in Nalanda and it is preserved now in the National Museum in Delhi. The Nalanda inscription is an ancient Buddhist inscription located in Nalanda within the present-day Bihar state of northeastern India. It has been dated to 860 CE. The inscription talks about King Devpal Dev of Bengal, who had granted the request of Sri Maharaj of Swarndweep, Balputra or Balputra Dev, to build a Buddhist monastery at Nalanda. Balaputra was mentioned as the son of Samagravir, grandson of Shailendra Vansh with stylized name Sri Veer Mathan, king of Java, that married Tara, daughter of Dharmasetu. It was found by Hiranand Shastri in 1921 in the antechamber of monastery number 1 at Nalanda. We being requested, it says, we being requested by the illustrious Maharaj Balaputra Dev, the king of Suvarnadweep, through a messenger, I have caused to be built a monastery at Nalanda, granted by his edict towards the income for the blessed Lord Buddha, the abode of all the leading virtues like the Prajna Paramita, for the offerings, shelter, aims, the requisites of the sick, like medicines, etc., of the assembly of the venerable bhikshus of the four quarters, the bodhisattvas well versed in the tantras, the 8 great holy personages for writing the dharma ratnas of Buddhist texts, and for the upkeep and repair of the monastery damaged. Then epigraphical evidence in form of royal seals and sealings, and also of those depicting Nalanda Mahavihar and various functionaries belonging to circa 5th century to 12th century CE have also been found. They also provide evidence of various administrative and functionary units under the Mahavihar, such as Sri Nalanda Mool Navakarma Varik Bhikkhu Nam, that is responsible for construction and repairs, or Sri Nalanda Chivarak Jamanarya Chivarak Jamanarya Bhikkhu Sanghas, in charge of provisions such as clothes and grains, etc. So all these functionaries, officers, they were managing the university. In this context, mention of Sanghantika, that is a shop, in the inscription of King Yashovarman from Nalanda is significant. There was a university shop from where the students coming from outside could purchase robes, purchase books, and other household materials which were utilized for the students. Evidence of a few jars with dried up mortar and a cistern on the western end of monastery number 11 suggests it to be the complex of the Navakarmikas who taught construction, conservation, and repairs. And then the intangible aspects also suggest the greatness of Nalanda. Beginning of the Apabhransh poetry is its contribution, as Sarahpad was the first exponent of it. It is the mother of Hindi and other modern North Indian languages. Now finally, Nalanda Mahavihar was more or less a monastic establishment, though with great teachers till the Gupta period, 4th century CE. But from Gupta period onwards, it took the shape of a great center of learning with organized and planned setup. The attributes of Nalanda's OUV, that is outstanding universal value, suggest that it was the earliest organized center of learning in the world, with all the merits and distinct qualities of a university, the concept of which developed later in the Middle Ages in the West. Because in the West we have universities which came up sometimes around 11th or 12th century CE, like Bologna University or Oxford or Cambridge, etc. But Nalanda was much earlier than that, and it was a fully organized setup. It had the fully organized setup. Many Sanskrit texts were copied at Nalanda and have been preserved in India, Nepal, and UK, which indicate the existence of the vast collection of books in the Dharmganj, which still needs to be located. This Dharmganj was the great library which was burnt at Nalanda, so it still requires to be located. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sir. So please unmute your mic.
Dr. Mishra, unmute कर लीजिए. You have to unmute.
Mr. Sir, please unmute your mic, sir.
Okay, okay. Now I think some questions have come.
Sir, there is one question in the chat box. Anuja ma'am, please, you can take the question.
Sir, actually, the question is from Aman Kumar, and it reads, respected sir, what is your take on one more site called Telhara, which is only 30 to 35 kilometers away from the Nalanda, and also more universities like Odantapuri, which is only 12 kilometers, and others of the same area?
Yeah, those sites, particularly Telhara, is under excavation by the State Department of Archaeology of Bihar. And only thing that we still are not very clear about the identification of these monasteries. But Nalanda was much larger than all these.
So there's another question in the chat box that reads, sir, can you explain in Nalanda, which is the place where thousands of books were destroyed?
My last sentence in this presentation was that the Dharmganj, which was the library, which has been mentioned by many scholars, although books were taken by the residents to Nepal, Tibet, China, etc. But when it was attacked, it was burnt, and there are different stories about the burning of the library. Only thing that in my last sentence I have mentioned that this Dharmganj library has to be located, and the present area of Nalanda is not the entire Nalanda. It is the monastic area having the monasteries in series, but still beyond it, particularly towards north of it, there are areas like Prangan. When we say Prangan, that means the courtyard. So probably that was the area from the northern side where there can be more excavations and exploratory surveys, which may in future, if the time and the mm, people of the place they agree, then it could be possible for further work. In Begumpur area, which is on the north. So that requires to be further explored. That is why we have not been able to locate the actual library area. Even 20 years of excavations, after 20 years of excavations, it was not discovered at that time. But the things have become more complicated today because the area is fully occupied towards north, and it is very difficult to get places for further archaeological investigations.
Yes, sir. There's another question. Um, this question is by Shikha Mishra. She has asked that earlier ASI didn't used to do horticulture to make the site look beautiful, but how recently they have started to, and how justified is this that to make a site beautiful we are using water, and tree roots can also corrode the structures beneath.
You know, the ASI has got a full-fledged horticulture wing, and the horticulturists in ASI, they uh, take a view that the plants are grown in such a way that they do not destroy or damage the structures. The structures are also provided with aprons. So the lawns which during the period of Lord Curzon himself, the lawns were introduced in order to beautify the surroundings. So they are being followed, but not in all the cases, only in selected cases where there are more tourists and more there are more requirements from the angle of tourism. So it is seen that water may not percolate, as well as the tree roots also do not go inside the structures.
Sir, there's another question from Manmohan Tuli. He is asking, dear sir, is Nalanda the oldest university of India, even older than Takshila University?
In the beginning of my presentation, I told that Taxila was, it started sometimes in the 5th century BC or so. But it was not an organized university. Taxila had different city sites, Dhir, Sirkap, Sirsuk, like that. And then there were different monasteries, there were different type of residents who were living in Taxila. There were Buddhist scholars, there were Brahmanical scholars. So it was not a unified uh, unit uh, or organized unit as such, but it was a center of learning. So we can call it a center of learning, not in the true sense of a university, but a center of learning where people from different countries and also the Indian students used to go and learn. But Nalanda was definitely, as in my entire presentation, I wanted to uh, mm, give emphasis that it was an organized institution. It was well within an enclosed area with series of hostels in the form of monasteries on one side, series of temples on the other side, and maybe in the north towards north there might have been some more planning of the university, which in the present state of our knowledge uh, we are not much able to locate. But the present form of Nalanda protected site itself, it suggests that it was a well organized university, and in that way, the Mahavihar definitely started from the time of Buddha onwards, particularly from the time of Ashok onwards, but it took the shape of a university during the Gupta period and continued up to the Pak period.
Actually, I would have one small question or what advice. Although we are working about Nalanda, but I think we are just covering Nalanda in a very short space. This is not the Nalanda, the present Nalanda what we are seeing. I remember when I was the superintending archaeologist of Patna, I wanted to know, I think Dr. Mani was also with me, and I wanted to know what was the gateway of Nalanda monastery.
Yeah, we
And
mentioned about Prangan.
if you remember, we have traced some places where we could find out that this may be the entrance gateway in the northern side. And then we asked the scientists from ISRO also, and ISRO scientists had also come and they had done the mapping of Nalanda. In fact, one of my article has also come in Science Today with the scientists of ISRO article, and they have spotted some areas which needs interpretation now by the archaeologists, that whether that can be considered at the gateway or the entrance of Nalanda monastery. So I think a lot of works is required in Nalanda. Nalanda ASI is doing whatever works, but still a big project is required for Nalanda so that original Nalanda should come out. Many things are hidden. It is not that area only where our ASI has protected. It has got a vast area, maybe covering more than 20 kilometers. That needs to be preserved and conserved.
I fully agree with you. And that is why I also mentioned about Prangan, where we were exploring the area in 2007, if you remember.
Yes, 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 yes.
And we had noticed the PWD had dug some area and we found the Kushan bricks there.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
And we also made some debris clearance and scientific clearance work.
Yes, yes.
So that is a very important thing which you also mentioned, and we
Yeah.
must have a project, something like a national project, which should be undertaken, because now Nalanda is known, is accepted by the UNESCO as the oldest university of the world. So it is our duty to see that Nalanda is properly exposed to view.
Yeah.
डॉक्टर वी आर मनी साहब हिंदी में हम पूछना चाह रहे हैं आपसे।
हाँ जी, पूछें जरूर।
जी जी, हम नालंदा के रहने वाले हैं और डॉक्टर पी के मिश्रा जी से हम जुड़े रहे, आपसे भी जुड़े रहे।
जी जी।
नालंदा के रहने के कारण इस पर मैं काम भी बहुत किया, हम लोग जो भी संभव हुआ। लेकिन मैं आपसे अनुरोध ही करना चाहता हूँ कि नालंदा का मुखद्वार के बारे में चर्चा कर रहे थे, आज तक उसकी खुदाई आज़ादी से पहले कनिंघम ने जो खुदाई किया 4 से 5% कितना है, उसके बाद 74 वर्षों में आजादी के बाद कोई खुदाई नहीं। तो मेरा ऐसा ही कर क्या रहा है या कर क्या रहा था?
नहीं, ऐसा है कि वो एरिया जो है ना, जिसको हम लोगों ने कहा कि प्रांगण वाली एरिया, जो जहाँ से नालंदा का एंट्रेंस रहा होगा, उस एरिया को अगर हम देखें तो वो पूरा एरिया बेगमपुर विलेज से भरा हुआ है। अब किसी के घर को उखाड़ करके तो वहाँ काम नहीं हो सकता, लेकिन अगर किसी तरह से सरकार ये प्रयास करे कि लोगों को वहाँ से रिहेबिलिटेट करके कहीं दूसरी जगह उनको उचित स्थान दिया जाए, तो जो कि बहुत ही मुश्किल काम है, बहुत सारी जगहों पर संभव नहीं हुआ है, कहीं कहीं संभव भी हुआ है। तो अगर लोग वहां से कंपनसेशन ले करके दूसरी जगह शिफ्ट हो सकें तो वो सारा का सारा एरिया, जहाँ वहाँ एक सूर्य मंदिर भी है
जी
और भी बहुत सारे एविडेंस हैं बेगमपुर विलेज, तो अगर उसको एक्सपोज किया जाए तो नालंदा का अपना ओरिजिनल स्वरूप भी निकल के आ सकता है और हमें बहुत सारी नई इंफॉर्मेशन भी मिल सकती है।
डॉक्टर मनीष साहब, आपका व्याख्यान सुन रहे थे, बहुत लाभ मिला, बहुत लाभान्वित हुए, बहुत शानदार। अभी लगातार 1.5 घंटे तक मैंने आपका व्याख्यान सुना। मेरा विनम्र आग्रह यह है कि विश्व धरोहर सूची में नालंदा के शामिल होने के बाद भी नालंदा का रत्ती भर विकास नहीं हुआ। एक ईंट भी 2016 में जो वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज में शामिल हुआ था, आप लोगों ने बहुत प्रयास किया, आप डॉक्टर पी के मिश्रा जी तमाम लोग मिल करके, इस बात के लिए मुझे गौरव भी है। लेकिन तब के बाद सर एक ईंट भी नालंदा के विकास में नहीं लगा। क्या कारण है? ऐसा ही क्या कर रहा है भारत सरकार का संस्कृति मंत्रालय? मुझे यह भी समझ नहीं पाते हैं कि नालंदा से बड़ी ख्याति दुनिया के लिए क्या है। भारत के लिए तो खैर नहीं कुछ है, भारत के लिए सबसे जरूरी है नालंदा, सबसे आवश्यक है, लेकिन इसके बावजूद एक ईंट का नहीं लगना यह बहुत ही दुखदायी नहीं है क्या? उसका बफर जोन का निर्माण नहीं होना, राज्य सरकार के द्वारा, केंद्र सरकार के द्वारा कोई योजनाओं के लेना नहीं, सिर्फ नालंदा बोलने से डॉक्टर मनीष साहब नहीं होना है ना। तो आप जैसे परम विद्वान का क्या मार्गदर्शन है, क्या करना चाहिए हम लोग को? हम करने को तैयार हैं, लड़ने को तैयार हैं, सरकार से आंदोलन, जन आंदोलन करने को तैयार है। मैं तो जानता हूं कि बगैर जन आंदोलन का कुछ होना नहीं है, क्योंकि इतने साल में, मतलब मैं नालंदा से बोल रहा हूँ, मैं नालंदा मुखद्वार के बगल से बोल रहा हूँ, नालंदा के जो मुखद्वार है वहां से बोल रहा हूँ। कुछ भी एक ईंट भी पिछले 2016 से नहीं लगा। यहाँ के जो अधिकारी आते हैं, एसआई के जो सुप्रिंटेंडेंट है, वो शिथिल नहीं, महाशिथिल है, वो गैर जिम्मेदार भी है। हमारे गांव चंडीमो में नालंदा का खुदाई किया गया था, मैं कई बार पत्र लिखा हूं, कोई कार्रवाई नहीं किया गया। मैं पार्लियामेंट में क्वेश्चन भी करवाया। नालंदा के सांसद कौशलेंद्र कुमार की है, इनके स्मृति में पुस्तकालय बना है, पुस्तकालय, एक भी पुस्तकालय, जिस नालंदा को पुस्तकालय के लिए जाना जाता था, एक भी सब पुस्तकालय नहीं नालंदा में। नालंदा जो नालंदा मोनूमेंट है, वहां पर कोई भी कुछ भी विकास नहीं हुआ। मैंने नालंदा एक पंचायत भी नहीं है सर, यह दुर्भाग्य। मैं बहुत दुख के साथ कह रहा हूं कि नालंदा जिला, डिस्ट्रिक्ट का नाम नालंदा है, उसका मुख्यालय बिहार शरीफ है, लेकिन नालंदा मतलब नालंदा मोनूमेंट, मतलब नालंदा एंशिएंट, नालंदा यूनिवर्सिटी, वहां पर वो एक पंचायत मुख्यालय भी नहीं है। क्या सरकार की उदासीनता नहीं है? क्या समाज की उदासीनता नहीं है? मैं चाहता हूं कि कुछ इस पर मार्गदर्शन आप दें।
नहीं, निश्चित रूप से आपका कहना बिल्कुल सही है। और 2015 में मैं जब आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे से रिटायर हुआ, उसी समय हम लोगों ने ये नॉमिनेशन डोसियर सबमिट किया था और बड़ी कोशिश उस समय की कि हमें किसी तरह से, जो वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट के लिए 2 किस्म के प्रपोजल होते हैं, एक तो कोर एरिया का और दूसरा उसके चारों तरफ सराउंडिंग एरिया। तो हमने इसलिए वो प्रपोजल में करीब करीब 1 से 1.5 किलोमीटर लंबा एरिया रखा था, जिसमें आगे वाला बेगमपुर विलेज भी आता था और कम से कम 7-8 जो बड़ी वाटर बॉडीज हैं वो भी आती थी। उनको इसीलिए रखा था कि वो सारे हिस्टोरिकल फीचर्स, अगर नालंदा को हमें समझना है तो हम इसको बड़े एरिया को कवर करेंगे तभी समझ सकते हैं। जो जैसे बुद्धिस्ट मॉन्क्स के लिए आता है कि वो यहाँ से अपने स्टूडेंट्स के लिए या मॉन्क्स के लिए कि यहाँ से जाते थे और पश्चिम के सरोवर में स्नान करते थे या दक्षिण के सरोवर में स्नान करते थे। वो सरोवर अभी भी हैं, उनके एविडेंस हैं। उन्हीं को जो एरिया हम उनको ले नहीं रहे थे, लेकिन उस एरिया को हम ये चाहते थे कि वो कंस्ट्रक्शन फ्री जोन डिक्लेयर कर दिया जाए और स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की जब तक उसमें अनुमति नहीं होगी तब तक वो नहीं हो सकता था। तो अल्टीमेटली हम लोगों को कोई हेल्प नहीं मिली। हमें सिर्फ जो 100 मीटर्स और 300 मीटर्स वाला रेगुलेशन है ASI का कि जो 100 मीटर्स प्रोहिबिटेड एरिया और बियॉन्ड 100 मीटर्स 200 मीटर और लेकर के जो 300 मीटर्स का आता है उतना रेगुलेटेड एरिया लेकर के ही हमें संतोष करना पड़ा और उसी हिसाब से हमने नॉमिनेशन डोसियर भेजा। तो ऐसे में स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की हेल्प की बहुत आवश्यकता है। हम चीफ सेक्रेटरी से लेकर के और सारे ऑफिसर्स से हम लोगों ने मुलाकात की, मैंने भी की, मिश्रा जी ने भी की, लेकिन अल्टीमेटली रिजल्ट उसका निल रहा। और हमें जो एंशिएंट मॉन्यूमेंट्स एक्ट के अनुसार रेगुलेशंस है उन्हीं पे निर्भर करना पड़ा। अगर हम उस एरिया को भी लेते तो आगे वो कंस्ट्रक्शन फ्री जोन होता। कल को हम अगर लोगों को वहां से रिहेबिलिटेट करते तो उस एरिया को भी फर्दर एक्सपोज करके पुरातात्विक अन्वेषण, उत्खनन आदि के माध्यम से उसको और अच्छे से समझ सकते थे, लेकिन वो अनफॉर्चुनेटली हो नहीं सका। उसके बाद फिर वो ऐसा समय था कि मैं भी सेवानिवृत्त हो गया, मिश्रा जी भी सेवानिवृत्त हो गए।
जो सर आप जब आप एडीजी थे सर, एसआई के जब एडीजी थे तो सर आपसे जाके मिले थे, पीके मिश्रा जी मिले थे, आपके दफ्तर में मिले थे। आप आश्वासन दिए थे कि नालंदा मेरी दृष्टि में है, नालंदा का पूरा विकास होगा। आपने कहा था कि आपकी जितनी चिंता है उससे कम चिंता हमारी नहीं है, मैं नालंदा को अपने हृदय में रखा हूँ। तो सर लेकिन नालंदा का कोई विकास नहीं हुआ। आपका कहना है कि राज्य सरकार का कोई सहयोग नहीं मिला। तो सर राज्य सरकार के जो मुखिया हमारे मुख्यमंत्री जी हैं आदरणीय श्री नीतीश कुमार जी, वो नालंदा के ही रहने वाले हैं और नालंदा के विकास का ढोल पीटते हैं, लेकिन कला संस्कृति नालंदा जैसे गौरवशाली जगह के लिए कोई अब तक कोई काम एक ईंट भी जब तक मुझे होश हुआ नहीं लगा। अभी इधर के वर्षों में जब मैं दिल्ली में था, नालंदा में हूँ, तो इस पर सर कैसे किया जाए? मैंने बहुत ही दुर्भाग्य है, काशी 5000 घरों को हटाकर काशी विश्वनाथ के मंदिर को जीर्णोद्धार किया जा रहा है, उसको विकसित किया जा रहा है। क्या बेगमपुर को, क्या सूर्य मंदिर को, सूर्य मंदिर के आसपास जो बड़गांव गांव में है उसको सरकार नहीं हटाया जा सकता?
बिल्कुल हो सकता है और होना भी चाहिए। होना भी इसलिए चाहिए क्योंकि हमको अधिक से अधिक जानकारी उसके बारे में चाहिए। हम तभी ये अपनी बात को बड़े बल के साथ कह सकेंगे कि ये हमारा गौरव है और नालंदा जो है विश्व का प्राचीनतम विश्वविद्यालय है। इस बात को कहने के लिए हमारे पास जो प्रूफ आ सकते हैं उनके लिए स्टेट गवर्नमेंट और सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट दोनों को काम करना चाहिए। और जैसे कि आपने सही कहा कि काशी विश्वनाथ कॉरिडोर में कितने सारे घरों को शिफ्ट कर दिया गया, घरों को तोड़ करके मंदिरों को वहां निकाला गया है और उस एरिया को डेवलप करने का प्लान है। तो उसी तरह से जब तक ये हायर लेवल से डिसाइड नहीं होगा तो हम आप बहुत मुश्किल से कुछ कर सकते हैं। हमारे बस में जो था वो हमने किया और लड़ भीड़ करके किसी भी तरह से हमने नालंदा को वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज का स्टेटस दिलवा दिया। और सिर्फ स्टेटस नहीं दिलवाया बल्कि एक स्टेटस दिलवाया कि पूरे दुनिया की ये सबसे प्राचीनतम यूनिवर्सिटी। अब आगे उसके विकास के लिए क्या कदम उठाए जाएं, आप लोग जो राजनीति से संबंधित हैं, आप लोग ज्यादा बेहतर उसको कर सकते हैं।
नहीं सर, हम लोग संस्कृति कर्मी हैं, हम तो नालंदा पर बहुत वर्षों से काम भी किए हैं। मूल रूप से मैं संस्कृति कर्मी, कोई राजनीतिक दल से मेरा संबंध नहीं है, न मैं उसका सदस्य हूँ। लेकिन जॉर्ज साहब चाहते, जॉर्ज फर्नांडिस चाहते थे कि नालंदा का बहुत विकास हो।
सामाजिक संगठन या इस तरह से अगर आप
सर अगर मार्गदर्शन करें, मैं तो चिंता सिर्फ व्यक्त की माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी से आप लोग कई बार मिले होंगे, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है, और पत्राचार्य जैसा बता रहे हैं चीफ सेक्रेटरी से मिले हैं और तमाम लोगों से मिले हैं। लेकिन सर एक कदम हम लोगों ने लोकसभा में सवाल करवाए हैं, माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी को मात्र 80 बार मैंने पत्र लिखा है, प्रधानमंत्री को 34 बार पत्र लिखे हैं इस संबंध में, लेकिन कोई कार्रवाई अब तक नालंदा के लिए नहीं किया गया। मेरा मानना है कि नालंदा के प्रति केंद्र सरकार और बिहार सरकार दोनों क्यों इतना उदासीन है। मैं प्रफुल्ल पटेल साहब से मिलकर मैं चिंता व्यक्त किए थे, मैं प्रफुल्ल पटेल साहब से मैं हाथ जोड़कर मैं कहते कि नालंदा का उचित विकास होना चाहिए। यह जो वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज सूची में शामिल हुआ है, मुझे लगता है कि कहीं इसका दर्जा छीन नहीं जाए। मुझे तो इस बात का भय है, और इसकी ऐसी चर्चा है कि अगर समुचित विकास नहीं किया गया एक समुचित समय में, तो कहीं दर्जा छीना नहीं जाए और फिर कहीं वापस नहीं होगा। नालंदा जैसे ऐतिहासिक जगह का अगर दर्जा छीन लिया जाता है, यह केंद्र सरकार के लिए, राज्य सरकार के लिए बहुत ही शर्म की बात है, और हम लोग के लिए तो बेहद शर्म की बात है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल सही कहा।
तो सर आप जैसे पुरातत्वविद जो हैं, आप हुए, डॉक्टर पी.के. मिश्रा साहब हुए, आपके साथ दर्जनों लोग होंगे, सब मिलकर एक क्यों नहीं प्रधानमंत्री से मिलने का उपक्रम किया जाए सर, कुछ तो मार्गदर्शन कीजिए। मैं चाहता हूं कि आज कुछ बोलें, और बोल करके हम करना चाहते हैं, मतलब हम लोग लोकतांत्रिक तरीके से करना चाहते हैं, हम लोग गांधी के रास्ते पर चल के करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन बहुत पीड़ा सर है कि नालंदा का कुछ भी विकास नहीं है। मैं नालंदा का बेटा हूँ, नालंदा मेरा घर है, लेकिन नालंदा में कुछ भी, मेरा गांव का नाम चंडीमोह है, जहां आप लोगों ने खुदाई किए थे 1994 में, काफी आप लोगों ने उसमें पैसा लगाया, लेकिन जस का तस है, उससे कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ। वहां पर एक सूर्य मंदिर है पंचानन नदी के बगल में, आम्रवन है, जहां पर भगवान बुद्ध विश्राम किए थे, और लोग कहते हैं कि नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय का चारदीवारी वहां तक था, लोग बताते हैं, मुझे मालूम नहीं। डॉक्टर के मोहम्मद ने कहे थे कि वहां तक प्रभाव इसका, वहां तक वो रेखा है, तो मुझे मालूम नहीं है कहाँ तक है, लेकिन मेरे गांव का नाम चंडीमोह है, वहां पुष्करणी सरोवर है, तालाब है, जहाँ बुद्ध स्नान भी किया करते हैं, लोग कहा करते हैं, श्रुतियों में है। तो इन जगहों का विकास नहीं हुआ। मैंने तालाब को तो इस बार 10 एकड़ के तालाब का मैंने विकसित करवाया है, पूरा खुदाई करवा के, लोगों से मिल करके, सरकार से मिल करके, बहुत सुंदर हुआ है। देखिए इस क्षेत्र का जितना विकास डॉक्टर मनी साहब होना चाहिए, अगर आप दिल्ली में बैठे हैं, अगर 1-2 बार वहीं से अगर कोशिश किया जाएगा, जिस तरह डॉक्टर पी.के. मिश्रा साहब हैं, उन्होंने बहुत कोशिश किए थे, उसमें वो नालंदा का मुखद्वार खोजने के लिए इसरो से लाए थे, मिले थे भी, बहुत कोशिश किए थे, लेकिन आज तक सब पता नहीं, कुछ नहीं चल सका। आप तो एडीजी थे, आपने कहा था कि मेरे हृदय में नालंदा है, और एक राकेश तिवारी जी थे, तो राकेश तिवारी जी वैसा सहयोग नहीं कर पाए थे जैसा आप किए थे। राकेश तिवारी जी पुरातत्व विभाग से अलग कहीं आदमी थे, वो डीजी जरूर थे, लेकिन हम लोग की बात नहीं सुनते थे, जबकि कई एमपी उनको लिख के दिए थे। मैं बार बार मिलता था, मैं उनसे हाथ जोड़ता था कि नालंदा का विकास कीजिए, वो नालंदा के विकास आज तक नहीं कर पाता, रात्रि भर भी कोई राकेश तिवारी जी नहीं किए थे। स्वयं मुरारी बापू उन्होंने कहा था नालंदा का विकास करो, उस समय उनकी भावना से मैं अवगत कराया था। आप प्रयास किए थे, लेकिन मेरा अनुरोध है कि सर नालंदा के लोगों की तरफ से, नालंदा की जनता की तरफ से, नालंदा के प्रेमियों की, नालंदा प्रेमियों की तरफ से मैं आपसे आरजू करता हूँ, विनती करता हूँ, सर कुछ रास्ता निकालिए।
नहीं, मैं हमेशा आप लोगों के साथ हूँ। ये है कि अगर कोई इस तरह का नालंदा के विकास से संबंधित कोई भी कार्य होगा, तो उसमें मैं आपके साथ रहूंगा। तो
पी.के. मिश्रा साहब भी लाइन पे हैं। पी.के. मिश्रा साहब, आप आए थे, आप आज बच्चन, आज आपसे मेरा अनुरोध है कि कुछ बोलिए कि कैसे किया जा सकता है। एकदम कुछ भी विकास नहीं हुआ है, मतलब सर नालंदा जो मुखद्वार है ना, उसके बगल में भी कोई विकास नहीं, मतलब जस का तस, मैंने जैसे 25 साल पहले देखते थे नालंदा, वैसे ही नालंदा सर है, विश्व धरोहर सूची में शामिल हो गया, बड़ी बड़ी बात हो गई, प्रधानमंत्री इसका नाम लिए, डॉक्टर कर्ण सिंह नाम लिए, तमाम देश के लोग गौरव के साथ नाम लेते हैं, लेना भी चाहिए, मुझे तो फक्र ही है। लेकिन सर कैसे विकास होगा? पी.के. मिश्रा साहब, आप मनी साहब बहुत सीनियर आदमी हैं, आप उनके साथ काम किए हैं, आपका भी योगदान बहुत था इसमें, बहुत विश्व धरोहर सूची में शामिल करने में मनी साहब का, आपका, फोनिया साहब का, सबका योगदान था। कुछ मार्गदर्शन कीजिए कि नालंदा के समाज को कैसे विश्वास दिलाया जाए कि डॉक्टर मनी साहब, डॉक्टर पी.के. मिश्रा साहब मिल करके इस काम को बढ़ाने वाले हैं। मैं लगातार चिंतित हूँ, लगातार लोगों से बात कर रहा हूँ।
बिल्कुल नीरज जी, आपका सुझाव तो बहुत सालों से है, और हम लोग इस पर, अब चूंकि हम लोग शासन से हट गए हैं, लेकिन फिर भी हम लोग बहुत काम करेंगे। हम मणि साहब से, फोनिया जी से, सबसे बात करके हम लोग एक योजनाबद्ध बनाते हैं, आपको भी उसमें शामिल करते हैं, और नालंदा का विकास होना चाहिए, इसमें कोई दो मत नहीं है। विकास नहीं हुआ है, वो वर्ल्ड हेरिटेज साइट्स ऑफ वर्ल्ड के और देखिए तो बहुत विकसित है, और नालंदा अभी वैसा का वैसा ही है। तो हम लोग निश्चित इस पर गौर करेंगे। धन्यवाद, आपने बहुत।
राजीव का विकास हुआ, मनीष साहब, राजीव का विकास हुआ, स्टेडियम हुआ, ये हुआ, सारा चीज बन रहा है, लेकिन ठीक है, राजीव का विकास होना चाहिए, मैं अभिनंदन करता हूँ। माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी कार्यक्रम का स्वागत करता हूँ, लेकिन नालंदा में एक ईंट भी लगाने का काम शुरू नहीं हुआ। पुरातात्विक दृष्टिकोण से देखते हुए हमारे जो नालंदा मोन्यूमेंट है उसका कुछ भी नहीं हुआ। 74 साल में कोई खुदाई तक नहीं हुई, कोई खुदाई नहीं। मुझे दुर्भाग्य, बेगमपुर गांव हो या बड़गांव, सरकार चाह लेगी तो सब हो जाएगा। मनीष साहब, आप सरकार को, आप विद्वान आदमी है, आप लोग
नहीं,
लिखिए।
खुदाई का ऐसा है ना, खुदाई तो देखिए मिश्रा जी ने ही एक साइड वहाँ पास में बड़ा का काम किया। हम लोगों ने 2 किलोमीटर पश्चिम में जाफरडी है, उसकी खुदाई की। फिर उसके बाद रुक्मिणी स्थान जो वो भी 2.5 किलोमीटर के करीब है, वहाँ की भी खुदाई हुई। तो चीजें तो सब सामने बहुत सारी आ गई, लेकिन नालंदा जो मेरा तो ये भी प्रपोजल था कि जो मेन नालंदा साइट है वहाँ उस समय जब ब्रिटिश पीरियड में 20 वर्षों तक खुदाई हुई तो उनको एक स्ट्रक्चर मिल जाता था, तो उसको उन्होंने प्रिजर्व करके रख दिया। फिर उसके बगल में दूसरी खुदाई किया, एक स्ट्रक्चर और मिल गया, प्रिजर्व करके रख दिया। लेकिन उसके नीचे क्या है वो तो खुदाई नहीं हुई, तो इसलिए अभी भी गुंजाइश है कि वहाँ खुदाई हो।
आप सब नेशनल म्यूजियम के डीजी भी थे। नालंदा में जितने सर हमारे गांव का 200 मूर्ति निकला, 200 कीमती मूर्ति, वो पटना में सर है। आसपास नालंदा में हजारों मूर्तियां, तेघड़ा में तिलाकत विश्वविद्यालय जो प्राचीन विश्वविद्यालय वहां निकला, लेकिन सर वो रखने का जगह नालंदा में नहीं है। क्या नालंदा में एक नेशनल म्यूजियम नहीं होना चाहिए सर? नालंदा इसका हकदार नहीं है।
नहीं, नेशनल म्यूजियम में भी नालंदा की मूर्तियां हैं, ऐसा नहीं कि वहां की ना हो, लेकिन सबसे उचित यही होगा कि नालंदा में, जो मैंने सुना था कि वहां का जो साइट म्यूजियम है वो तोड़ करके बड़ा म्यूजियम बनाया जा रहा है। अब पता नहीं उसमें क्या प्रोग्रेस है, क्योंकि मैं तो टच में हूँ नहीं। तो अगर वो बन रहा है तो उसमें उन्होंने जरूर इसका प्रोविजन रखा होगा कि वहां उन मूर्तियों को डिस्प्ले किया जाए। वहां वैसे भी बहुत सारी चीजें उनके स्टोर में पड़ी हैं जिनको सामने ले आना आवश्यक।
सर हम लोग के गांव की मूर्ति ने पटना में सर है, पटना संग्रहालय में है, हजारों मूर्तियां, हजारों सामान पटना। तो मेरा यह भी सरकार, भारत सरकार से अनुरोध है, और जॉर्ज फर्नांडिस साहब तो उसमें प्रयास भी किए थे, पता नहीं क्यों नहीं हुआ। नेशनल म्यूजियम के लिए प्रयास हुआ था, हम लोग के सामने ही प्रयास हुआ था। सर फिर से हम लोग को प्रयास करना चाहिए, और नालंदा नेशनल म्यूजियम का हक रखता है, और जितने सामान यहाँ निकलते हैं अगर उसको सुरक्षित रखा जाए तो इसके लिए आवश्यक है नेशनल म्यूजियम। अगर आप लोग साथ देंगे तो फिर हम लोग आगे बढ़ा सकते हैं इस काम को।
अब तो बहुत आसान है। श्री राघवेंद्र सिंह जो हैं वो इस समय कल्चर सेक्रेटरी भी हैं, और सारे म्यूजियम्स उनके अंडर, जो संस्कृति मंत्रालय के अंतर्गत जितने म्यूजियम्स आते हैं वो सब उन्हीं के अंडर। तो ऐसे में अगर ये प्रयास किया जाए तो नेशनल म्यूजियम में भी वो चीजें आ सकती हैं।
नेशनल म्यूजियम तो नालंदा में तो नहीं है ना। नेशनल म्यूजियम नालंदा आ जाए तो अगर यहाँ का निर्माण हो, राघवेंद्र जी से, श्री राघवेंद्र सिंह से हम अनुरोध करेंगे। अभी 2 दिन पहले कल्चर सेक्रेटरी हो गए हैं, और बहुत अच्छे आदमी हैं, कुछ दिन पहले भी थे वो शानदार आदमी है, आप ही जैसे वो शानदार आदमी है। तो हम लोग कोशिश करते हैं बस यही। और मुझे तो इतनी पीड़ा है सर, कितना दुर्भाग्य सर है कि नालंदा का कोई साहित्य नहीं है। बाहर के लोग आते हैं, कोई लिटरेचर खोजते हैं, ऐसा तो नहीं है, कोई लिटरेचर नहीं। बिहार सरकार ने एक लिटरेचर ही प्रकाशित कराने का काम नहीं किया है, या भारत सरकार ने, हमारे छोटे बच्चे कुछ भी उसके लिए नहीं है। ये नालंदा क्या है?
हम लोगों ने नालंदा की गाइड बुक इंग्लिश की थी, उसको हिंदी में भी उसका ट्रांसलेशन करा है। 10,000 कॉपी छपवाई और वो तुरंत की तुरंत बिकी।
लेकिन
जब मैं डायरेक्टर पब्लिकेशन था तो मैंने ही छपवाया
जी,
और वो 10,000 कॉपी तुरंत की तुरंत बिकी। मेरे पिताजी ने नालंदा हेरिटेज पे एक इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस की थी, और वही नालंदा में, जिसमें पूरे वर्ल्ड के स्कॉलर्स आए थे, और वो काफी मोटा वॉल्यूम उसका छपा हुआ है, ये इंग्लिश से ही प्रकाशित हुआ है, और संस्कृति मंत्रालय के हेल्प से छपा है, तो नालंदा हेरिटेज करके, तो वो भी अपने में पूरी कहानी बताता है।
लेकिन सर मेरी चिंता है कि डॉक्टर कर्ण सिंह जब नालंदा पर मांगे थे तो दिल्ली के किसी भी दुकान में खोज लिए नहीं मिल पाया। पटना के किसी दुकान में नहीं है। नालंदा पर जो सामग्री मिलना चाहिए, डॉक्टर कर्ण सिंह मांगे थे, तो नालंदा से डॉक्टर श्रीकांत बाबू से लेकर के मैंने डॉक्टर कर्ण सिंह को भिजवाए थे, दिए थे जाकर के। वे सार्वजनिक जिस तरह साहित्य, नालंदा का साहित्य जिस तरह होना चाहिए उस तरह नहीं।
ज्यादा प्रचार, ज्यादा छपनी चाहिए, अधिक संख्या में उपलब्ध होनी चाहिए।
जी जी, तो इन्हीं चिंता के साथ हम अपनी बात समाप्त करते हैं और अनुरोध करते हैं कि नालंदा पर महीना 2 महीना में आप अपना वक्तव्य देते रहेंगे, और जैसे कहेंगे हम लोग काम शुरू करने वाले हैं, क्योंकि पीके मिश्रा जी से बार बार बात करते हैं।
बिल्कुल, नालंदा ये सब जो ऐसे साइट हैं, इनके बारे में, इनके विकास से संबंधित कोई भी काम हो तो उसमें मैं पीछे नहीं हटने वाला हूँ, मैं आप लोगों के साथ हूँ।
चलिए, आप आज बहुत ही अच्छा अवसर है। बहुत लंबी हम लोगों ने वार्तालाप खींची, वीसी साहब भी पूरा टाइम दिए हैं। और नीरज जी, आपको खुशी होना चाहिए कि नालंदा, बंगाल से हम लोग नालंदा पर चर्चा कर रहे हैं। ये देखिए, बिहार में इसकी चर्चा होनी चाहिए थी, दिल्ली में चर्चा होनी चाहिए थी, और हम लोग बंगाल में नालंदा जागृत हो रहा है। तो
नालंदा
ये
तो सबका है सर, नालंदा तो बिहार का भी है, नालंदा बंगाल का भी है, भारत का भी है, पूरे विश्व का, पूरी मानवता का नालंदा है। और मैं कुलपति महोदय को प्रणाम करता हूँ।
ये चीज समाप्त नहीं होगा, ये चलता रहेगा, मद्रास तक जाएगा। और हम लोग बहुत अच्छा, मैं वीसी साहब से निवेदन करूंगा कि सभा के समापन के लिए वो आदेश करें।
जी।
So we had very lively discussion followed by a elaborate presentation by Dr. Mani. Nalanda, of course, its relation with Bengal is there because Silbhadra, the principal of Nalanda, he was from Bengal, and that's why. And many, these Bengali scholars, they went to Nalanda, and when this rampage took place in burnings and all these things, many, these manuscripts and books that through Bengal, this taken to other places by different scholars, and one of the important thing is that that is called this origin of Bengali language, this Charyapad, that was discovered at one of these, uncared places. Basically, that place was used for keeping the cows, and there that was discovered by one of the famous scholar of Bengal, and from there we came to know this origin of Bengali language and all these things. So it is a fascinating area of research for Bengal too, and we are very happy that under this leadership of Dr. Mishra, our heritage cell started working actively in that direction, and I will wish that in near future also we will have the presence of Dr. Mani and other scholars as well, and we want to develop this interconnected and network knowledge community. And without, this is the time for collaborative intelligence. Until and unless we cannot develop collaboration, networking, and integration among ourselves, many of our efforts will not see the light of the day. Therefore, in future, we want to have more and more people associated with us to take this, this mission of heritage restoration, preservation, the knowledge associated with it, the activities associated with it, is to take it forward. So I would like to thanks from the core of my heart to Dr. Mani, Mr. Niraj Kumar, and of course, Dr. Mishra and Ms. Anuja Bose. So with this, I would like to declare the today's session is over. We will join very, in near future within a very shortest possible time. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir, with your kind permission, we can close the session, sir.
We can close the session.
Thank you, sir.